Get Into Gate. This is episode 79. We're talking the
69.
curse. Oh, you can't. Yeah, we can't do that. Missed it by a couple of months. We are Get Into Gate. My name is Mitch. Got with me the full Get Into Gate team. Matty.
What's up?
Brendan.
Hello.
Rhys.
Yeah, g'day, guys.
And he's still obviously got nothing to do on the weekends.
Wow.
G'day, guys!
3 weeks in a row.
to be back.
But I
Great
thank
job.
you for the weekly drives in, because I don't have to drive in if you want to come in. That's fine. It works out well.
See you, Mitchell.
Great work.
This is
Thank
very,
you.
I'm very glad Lincoln is here for this episode.
Thanks, Matty.
I didn't care that he was here for the last two episodes. No, I'm kidding.
Good to have you here.
But we'll get to it after we've done our other bits and pieces. But there's a very important reason that one Mr. Lincoln Lewis is here for this episode.
Oh.
And hopefully we've got some newbies along for the ride. If this is your first episode of the show, we're 4 with Lincoln, long-term fans of the show. Rhys here is new to the show, watching it for the first time. So we just all watch it together and have a bit of a look-see about how it's aged, how it sits with a new viewer. And let's start off by having a look at the synopsis of the episode, and then we'll go straight to Rhys. So this one's described as: when Daniel Jackson returns to Chicago to attend the funeral of his mentor, a celebrated archaeologist, he soon realizes that the death is mysteriously connected to the recent discovery of a 10,000-year-old Egyptian artifact that might be cursed by a vengeful pharaoh. That's a very long sentence. Thank you, guys.
10,000 years will give you
Such a
crick
crick in the neck.
Every time they say 10,000 years, I've got to do that. I'm sorry. It's just-
Chicago, Windy City.
Home of the Cubs.
So, Rhys.
Mate, wasn't this interesting? A little bit of Daniel Jackson backstory, and then it was pretty good to see him thrust back in the archaeology limelight.
I wouldn't have said thrust, but okay.
I always say thrust
I
wherever I
usually-
can fit that word
I
in.
usually say thrush.
Ooh, thrush him in there. He wasn't in a hurry. That's good pun. But
Did
no,
he-
it's,
Go on.
I was
Don't interrupt him, mate.
Yeah,
It was bringing back the jokes from last week. Come on,
Yeah.
boys.
Good gear.
I was pretty.
What was it?
Someone's getting punched out before this podcast.
That's good because I have no idea where I'm going with this.
I like seeing him back there too, because there's kind of like a subtle pride that I had for a fake character. Like when he's just walking along, and he's just looking as nerdy as what he did 5 years ago. He doesn't have any sort of
With the world's
big-
biggest suit.
Yeah.
The world's highest pants.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, what have you been doing?" He's like, "Oh, I've been doing stuff. I've been keeping busy.
Yeah.
Like, really, haven't seen any papers written by you." And he's like, "Yeah, well, they're like, oh, you're trying to obviously, prove your theories." Yeah, there's a bit of that going on. And I thought, here they are. And you got that Stephen bloke thinking, well, I've got a best-selling book, and Old Love Sarah thinks she's doing wonderful things, probably is, but they have
She did a wonderful thing.
fucking idea what Daniel has been doing.
Yeah,
like, he's sitting there going, man, this is the shit that I've just seen.
If I could rub my career in your face right now.
Yeah.
But
And
that
don't
was
think I don't want to.
Yeah. And that was the interesting thing. Like from their perspective, he's literally, as old that dipshit Steven said. The last time I saw you, you were talking to an empty room full of people, and
Good throwback.
and that was literally the last time he's seen him, and then hasn't seen him for years. So as far as from their perspective, he's literally failed at what he's
Bombed out.
trying to
Dropped
do,
off the map.
and then just
Yeah.
disappeared.
Because
But
Sarah says, we haven't published any papers. I've
Yeah.
been looking out for you. I do love Daniel's little sort of jab at the end where he's just like, well, to be fair, they weren't empty when I started talking.
yeah,
It's like, look, I get it, and if I could tell you about all the classified shit I've been doing, I
But they-
would, but...
yeah.
They kind of retconned it again and like, oh, well, the pyramids weren't made by aliens. It's like, well, he never said that in his speech. But again, they're just retconning it for the series.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to ask at this point, is Osiris in her body? At this point.
Yeah, that's...
I had to think about that, and I for the longest time, I thought it was sort of later on, after I think the...
Dr.
Oh,
Jordan.
the
No, the
lady in the
the lady
elevator.
who
The
was, like,
librarian or the
artifact
librarian
wrangler lady when she comes down in the
cataloger.
That's it. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, in
The black lady is
in
what
the-
we all want to say.
We're trying to skirt around that for a while.
We're not. We're trying to be politically correct.
There's nothing-
I'll
there's
say
nothing-
it.
There's nothing
She
wrong
was
with
black.
that.
We all know
There
who we're
was
talking
nothing
about.
wrong
now,
with that. I
okay?
know, it's just such a funny thing to not want to say.
Look,
Was that actually her? Was that her who got killed?
in the
Yeah,
lift,
in
when
the
she
lift.
came
I
down
thought that
and
was like
said-
some kind of security guard or some
No,
shit.
a
Yeah,
brick fell on her head. She was Doctor Doctor something or other. If you try and work it back, and it to me it does affect Sarah / Osiris's character a little bit in that when she was helping Daniel like recover the emails and do all the tech stuff and finding the tombstone file, that was all Osiris, and I'm like that seemed to be too much helpful.
Yeah.
yeah.
But basically, yeah, back when the old guy, like his old professor who died in the big fire or whatever it was in the explosion, that was Osiris who caused that explosion because that doctor had discovered what was going on. So she killed that guy, and Daniel seemed to be the only one that could kind of that she's like, oh, he kind of knows what's going on. He can almost
You can read
he
Goa'uld.
can read that jar and all that sort of stuff. But I think the way I kind of was able to resolve it in my head is the only reason she needed that help is because by the time Daniel arrived, the key that she needed for the pyramid in Cairo had been taken, had been stolen. So that's the only reason. Like, if that key was still there, she would have just f***ed off and gone and found that stuff. But it's like she was using Daniel, I think, to try and find out where the Stargate was and find out more information because the other doctor guy, the dickhead guy, had stolen that little key and taken it off to Cairo.
What? Because one of those jars was sealed, right? That Dr. Jordan had. Was that the second one?
Osiris.
No, that was ISIS. So it was sealed, but it was broken. So that's the one that Fraser and Carter operate on.
Which is
The open one we never see because that's the one that was destroyed in the explosion that contained Osiris.
But he
and
got out.
He then took over Sarah.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
So he was looking for two things. He was looking for that key, and he had it, and he was trying to find his queen, Isis, her jar. But remember, the cataloger lady said it had been mislabeled, and that's why Sarah hadn't been able to find it yet. So Osiris had the key, but not Isis. And then Daniel finds Isis, but the key goes missing. So Osiris is like, well, fuck me, they're the two things I need. I can't have them both at the same time.
Colonel Mustard in the bloody diary room.
Yeah, pretty much.
Whatever it was.
And then that's...
So was that dipshit Stephen? Was he ever he wasn't the Goa'uld?
No, he never was, and I think that's the red herring they throw out.
Yeah,
is
'cause
that you
that's-
think he's the Goa'uld because he's pissed off to Egypt.
He's a dickhead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's a dick. The best thing he said was "men from Atlantis" in the whole episode.
Yeah.
That was
'Cause
the
that's-
only good thing.
I've got a note here. It's my second note. First one
Second of
is
three.
first one is Curse of Osiris in the magazine, and then the second one, Stephen is a dipshit. And then when they said, oh, there's a Goa'uld, I thought, oh, that's why Stephen's a dipshit. He's a Goa'uld. And then we find out he's not. And I'm like, oh, he's actually just a dipshit.
Yeah.
That's all he is.
And they really played it up well. It's like you think Stephen is going to be Osiris because that's the male Goa'uld that's missing.
Yeah.
And they're trying to find Isis, and you think, oh, okay, he's going to put Isis in Sarah. And they do the old bait and switch, and Osiris is in Sarah, and then Isis is the one that died.
Yeah.
Now, bringing up Isis, this is something that I've talked about in our Origins chat, and I teased that last week. Now, Lincoln, did you watch Origins, or did you just skip it?
No.
Okay.
Wise move. Wise
So
move.
the
There was
main-
paint that was drying at the time.
Yeah. So here's the
Someone
thing.
had to
watch that.
Someone
Tell
had
us
to
about
watch
it. Tell us
This
about it.
yeah,
will,
oh, it's amazing, dude.
What
No,
color,
no,
what
dude.
color was the paint?
It stayed in canon and everything.
Yeah. Was it?
Can we
After
do a
it was
podcast
rolled on the
paint?
wall,
Can
I
you
could
film
stay-
10 episodes of it?
Yeah. Was it gloss or matte finish paint?
mate?
Was it more purple or green?
We could do podcasts.
Three.
on this.
It was
absolutely.
3 10-minute coats.
So something you missed is the female Goa'uld in Origins, who was the main villain. They called Alcet. Now, Alcet is the Greek pronunciation of Isis. In the same way we call, like, there's Zeus and Jupiter. Zeus is the Greek, Jupiter's the Roman, or vice versa. I always mix those up.
Zeus is Greek, yeah.
Yeah. Isis is the Greek pronunciation of Alcet. Alcet is the Egyptian pronunciation. So these idiots in Origins...
Same person.
Same person, same god. So Origins, the idiots, are trying to say that in 1928, Alcet was on Abydos, when this show, since 2000, has been saying Isis has been stuck dead in that jar for the last 1,000 years.
yeah, been off the sunken in a sunken ship off the coast of New
it
Jersey
was only
for
discovered
70
like
years.
3
It's
months
not.
ago.
It's really not hard to buy the DVD pack and go. Oh, hang on. You know what?
Or just hire someone that's seen
let's
it.
just yeah.
Hey, find another friggin' Egyptian god and name it that. Like they specifically
Oh no, they
went.
definitely would have run out of them.
They went, oh, okay.
There's only 1,000. They had a god for everything.
They're like, oh, we can't use ISIS. That's a
Yeah.
reference to Syria. We'll choose the other name for our
Yeah.
set, even though ISIS has been mentioned in Stargate already. It's
Yeah.
like,
Joke.
f you guys.
But just pick someone else, and it
The god for sheets or something.
Yeah.
yeah.
The
Horus.
Tolan would understand them.
We never see Horus.
They
Like,
could never beat.
Yeah.
They could never beat the god of sheets. Cause I couldn't understand the way they work.
He's invincible. We cannot work him out.
We see Heruer, which is the closest we get to Horus, but Horus itself was also an Egyptian god. There's plenty out there they could have chosen from.
Yeah,
But
and
no,
it'd be different.
because it's a female.
Yeah, and it'd be different with Origins. Like while they, everyone, all the big defenders, and power to if you liked it. But when the biggest defense for that show breaking canon is that it didn't break canon because everything fit at the end. It was like, yeah, but it was a disgusting amount of convenience. At least, yes, technically, does it fit in canon? Absolutely. Did all this wonderful stuff. Mind wipe, as ridiculous and convenient of a plot line as that is, it does fit in canon. The ISIS thing doesn't, because correct
It
me if
doesn't
I'm
mean
wrong,
it's
and
good.
spoilers for Origins. ISIS or Alcet died, right? She was
Yeah.
killed at the hands of Ra for
Blown
her,
up
Yeah,
in 1928 on Abydos.
Yep. She ain't come back from that.
Nah.
No, unless we get Stargate Origins
Unless,
Alcet.
unless she travelled back in time through the Stargate and got stuck on a ship in a stasis
mate.
pod.
Yeah,
Sarcophagus.
mate,
I mean, it
you
could
know,
happen.
Far out.
They honestly, they could find a way to make it work, and you'd be like, okay, technically, yeah,
Yeah, you
It
got us.
fits.
If that was your main
still
aim,
shit.
yeah, succeeded. But well, guys, look, let's move on from Origins.
That's
I know
it.
we've said it so
Well,
many times.
let's talk about the reason that I'm so glad Lincoln is here. Is because hi.
One of them. One of the reasons.
Look at those eyes. Look at those eyes.
The main reason.
This, I'm fairly certain, is the first physical appearance of Jack's cabin. The first time we actually see it.
Absolutely.
With Jack fishing.
it's good to be here.
There was one
Ponds.
other. There
Yeah,
was one other
yeah,
time.
yeah.
They mention it, but you
No,
don't
he was
see
in it when
When he quit, you mean?
when he quit.
Now, where was he? When
No,
he
no,
quit?
that was his house.
Yeah, that was his
That was
house.
his
right?
house?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's his house.
when Mayborn rocks
Yeah,
up.
because
Yeah,
this pond is in memory says it's in Minnesota. You know, land of sky blue waters, blah blah
Yep.
blah. So it's actually
Yeah,
a
sure, you
flight.
bet you
you gotta
snookums.
fly to get that.
Yeah.
So it's a separate cabin. Now, if you jump onto our Facebook page, you'll see when Lincoln was working. Was it early this year or late last year?
Started this year.
Started this year. He was in Canada. He did a shoot in that goddamn cabin.
Randomly.
He just rocks up. We're just like all in our group chat, and suddenly we get this like little video message from him, just like going, "Hey, is this
Yeah.
Jack's cabin? Is it?" And we're all going,
This
"Yes."
this is too good to be true. Is it true?
Best thing about it is that when they said you're going to Vancouver to shoot, and I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I told the boys, I was like, all right, fellas, I'm going to Vancouver. This is where they shot Stargate. Imagine if I go past a place, I'm like, I recognize that. How cool would that be? All of a sudden, the first location, I'm not even kidding, the first location we go to shoot at, which is our shooting location for the next 2 days, we get to this cabin, I'm like, why does that look familiar? Hang on a minute.
Yeah, deja vu.
And they're already setting stuff. I'm like, hang on a minute. I know that porch. Wait a minute. Hang on.
Yeah.
I swear to God, if there's a lake going around. No!
Right. You've
It can't
seen
be
it.
There's fish in there.
You've seen it. You've seen it from an angle that no fan watching the show has seen it from, because we always see it from the pond side, looking at the cabin, because that's
Yeah,
the money
a
shot.
crane shot.
You stood on the deck of the cabin looking out over the pond. That blew my mind.
Amazing.
That blew my tiny little mind. And then the video where you're sitting there and you've got like a timber background behind you and you're talking to camera. Is that inside that cabin?
No.
No, it's outside
No, that
the
was-
cabin.
oh, that
it
was
was at the
outside the
side of the
cabin.
house, yeah. Side of
Oh,
the house.
God.
It was amazing. I walked all around that house.
Sploosh.
Yeah,
That's
it was
amazing.
the greatest.
Selfies and
Yeah, oh my
got
God.
naked. I was like, yeah.
I read somewhere.
Naked, flipped off the birds. It was
Yeah.
I read-
RDA got changed in this house.
I
We've
read
both been
somewhere that
naked.
it's like that.
Yeah.
That's part of like a big like
So much in
nature
common.
preserve in
It is.
Vancouver, and that's like the caretaker's house or something.
Well, that house is actually, no one's allowed to sort of rearrange, do anything to it. That's kind of
It's like
I wouldn't-
heritage
I wouldn't-
listed or something. isn't
yeah,
it?
I wouldn't. I was about to say I don't know if I'd say heritage listed, but essentially that is what it is. No one's really allowed
Yeah.
to mess around with that place because it's protected.
That's
Should
so
be.
awesome.
Private
Absolutely,
property.
it should be.
RDA's been
Yeah.
there.
You've
Yeah,
treaded on holy
absolutely.
ground.
Yeah.
SG1.
Like, did you go out onto the little jetty?
Did I?
Yeah. Hey,
Did I?
hey, he got his fishing rod
I
out.
was
there.
gonna say,
didn't he?
you got your fishing rod
Yeah,
out.
no, yeah.
There's
and
no
drop-
fish in there, Link. I
drop-
know.
You drop
It's
some
not
bait in that
about the
pond.
fish, guys.
Yeah, you drop some bait in that pond. And then by the time it kind of clicked, because there was the time difference with us here and you there and all that sort of stuff, I actually did find a website and it has basically a list of all the locations in Vancouver where Stargate is shot. Like, you know, from when that guy gets hit by the car, you know, the reporter gets
Washington.
When Hammond puts
Yeah.
the hit on,
with the
yeah.
stairs and that
Yeah.
big
Classic
statue.
Hammond.
You can go
This
there.
shit wildfire.
All these things.
It's
And
either that or self-destruct.
yeah. And then I sent a link to them all saying like, hey there, and he's like, dude, my flight leaves in like 2 hours. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah, and I have
But
no
it's like-
car.
yeah.
I have no car and I'm stuck here.
But it's like, if you're going to check one off the list, I'm so glad it was the cabin.
Oh,
'cause
absolutely.
That is
That's-
phenomenal. That is
yeah.
excellent.
The greatest.
I don't really
pun
think there's many
ever.
other like if you get, it's kind of anything else would almost be a bit of a letdown because
Oh,
that's the
see, you
epitome.
did that.
What did I do? I mean, I'll take the fist bump when it's there, but what did I do? I like that.
Won't leave a brother
We'll
hanging.
get there
but-
in season 9. We'll
All
get there in
right,
season
that's
9.
my boy.
mate.
That's my
Yeah.
boy.
So they've got a.
Thank you.
They've now got a Goa'uld sedative. Did they replicate that?
Hang on a sec.
They synthesized it.
Let's go back to Fraser's measurements
Oh,
because she'd gone
One
down fucked up
elephant.
again.
yeah. We'll put one elephant worth in there.
But she didn't even get sedated. He stabbed her with the needle, Jackson.
Yeah.
She did a bit of a limp.
Yeah.
A little bit of she had the wobbly boot on, but that was
Did
about
he
it.
give her the air-filled one again?
Well, I mean, one could only
Yeah,
hope.
what happened?
All she had was
She
the
racked off, eh?
Nothing.
Yeah, she got a bit stumbly and had enough time to monologue,
Yeah.
activate her ship,
Grab-
walk over to the rings, do that fucking epic thing where she's like with the hands and running
Yeah.
them up to activate the rings and then beam up.
Yeah.
And then I'm hoping that ship was on autopilot if she
Yeah.
passed out. Once
because
she
she
got up
probably
there.
would. Yeah, she would have passed out like a mofo.
Like, I would have preferred Fraser give her a little bit more. Maybe something
Yeah.
to take out an elephant.
Or
Yes,
even just
yeah.
a line saying, "Oh, you know, you need to hit her in the neck with it," or something like that. Hit her in the
Yeah.
carotid artery with it. Hit her in a main
Has
blood.
to be in the carotid artery.
Well, you know, just
Yeah.
somewhere where there's a lot of blood or something like that,
Or just something
closer to
along the
symbiote.
lines of we're
Yeah.
not entirely sure. So,
Up you
like,
cunt.
you know, we've synthesized this much, which I'm, you know, because she's had no problem in the past saying we don't know much about Goa'uld physiology, right?
Yeah.
So why doesn't she just say, look, we've synthesized this, which she did say, but from what I know, I think this would be enough to take out an adult, but we'll only know this, or like
Yeah.
it wouldn't have
Yeah.
taken anything more than 2 seconds more of the scene. That's it,
Yeah.
and it would have helped a lot.
Yeah.
Speaking of that scene, why is she on a covert mission?
Oh, dude, I was saying this to Mitchell before. I was like,
Where's
Mitch,
Jack? If you're going to call anyone back.
they're chasing down a possible Goa'uld former system lord.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get Walter in.
At least with the giant and someone with a giant spanner.
Get a Spaz 12 over at Takaro. Hurry up.
Like, or you know,
Hurry up.
what? And they had Jackson, Carter, and Fraser.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have a crack team of dudes parachuting
Major
in
haircut.
from an
Absolutely.
Air Force plane?
Yeah.
Going,
Haircut would kill for that mission.
Yeah.
oh,
Oh, Colonel
Colonel-
Haircut, Major
Major
Haircut.
Major
Major
haircut
haircut.
would kill for that
She'd
mission.
be
too.
loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, mate,
with
they'd
that?
be
buzz
there.
cut bills.
They'd be in their
Oh,
desert camo gear. They'd be being like Toker, just popping up out of the sand.
Just the
SG,
Toker there.
SG-11, they're expendable.
They can go and take the first hit. That's what
absolutely.
they're good at.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. But I think I realised why, like, Fraser has such a hard time with Goa'uld physiology. It's because it keeps changing on her. So in the like the,
Cooper!
in the
Lincoln's first Cooper.
Slap my hands!
Slap at the hands.
in like the shots of like the X-ray, like the 3D images of the X-ray of Isis's jar, it's a fully grown Goa'uld with
Oh,
the
yeah.
big spines on the back.
Well,
And the
mate,
big
it's because it was a
predator face.
computer enhanced MRI. Which,
Yeah, fair enough.
you know,
But it gave it the
I'm
big...
pretty sure that's what an MRI is.
It gave it the big fins on the back and made it really long
No.
and snake-like.
When an extremely deep static helmet is different than a deep static helmet.
But because they don't have a physical prop of that yet, they've just pulled out Teal'c's old Primtar physical prop.
Oh, yeah.
And she's cutting on a Primtar that she takes
Right.
out. So
it's supposed to be full-blown Hathor one.
Yeah, it should have been a big black Hathor one. So,
Jesus.
I
Yeah.
didn't pick.
It was green.
Good call. Good call.
Yeah, because even a few weeks ago in the first ones, the one that Shaka grabs out of the water and rips in half, that was all CG as well,
Yeah.
and it was just like the blue Fruit Loop thing that that he ended up eating. Yeah,
So I didn't get the whole. Oh, it could have died yesterday. When they got it
It's
out.
so well
yeah, but
preserved.
when did it die though?
Probably yesterday.
That's what I didn't understand. Why?
On the way to the SGC.
I think that was their way of backing up because they wanted to say, okay, Osiris is still alive. That was saying so. That was their way of backhandedly saying, okay, Osiris is still alive because these jars are keeping them alive.
Yeah.
Her jar was damaged, so it cracked, so it stopped keeping her alive,
Right.
but it still preserved the body perfectly.
The tissue.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I guess
Mummified.
would it have been 1,000 or thousands of years, in
well,
a
Ra hasn't
canopic
been
jar?
here in what,
Well, they said-
5,000
Would have
years.
been
I think,
like
yeah.
the handling was
The
probably
ship.
thing that
How long
cracked
had the
them.
ship been?
Well, the
Drown-
amulet or whatever it was is 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Ra left 5,000 years ago, so
Yeah.
they've been in that jar for at least 5,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
If they're stuck on Earth.
And then the ship that they retrieved it off that had
And no Netflix.
gone down.
How-
How long had that? Like they could have happened in that accident,
Yeah.
and because it is so tight, it looks like it's been gone for a day, but
Yeah.
it's
Mate,
been.
How pissed is Seth? He's been stuck on Earth for how long?
Oh,
Not been
yeah,
able to
I
get
know.
off. There's a fucking ship waiting for him in Cairo that he could
Legit,
use.
he could have used it
Like,
any time.
Yeah.
how pissed is he?
Wasn't it the sister or some shit?
But he would have needed the amulet
Didn't they say?
anyway
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
access
Her
that
brother?
thing, so-
Her brother
Osir-
Seth, or-
Osiris is Seth's brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, didn't even tell him.
Nah.
We got got the spare ship buried over there.
They're in direct competition.
And
But didn't Daniel
and that-
say at one point, "Oh, we've killed Apophis, we've killed Ra, and we've killed Seth"? Because she asked, "Where is my brother
Yeah.
Seth?"
yeah.
And
That
he's
was
like,
God.
"We've killed
So
him."
Like
God.
he's on the ground ready to die, Daniel. Like as far as he
Yeah.
knows, he's going to get killed. He's like, oh yeah, we that guy Ra used to lead everyone. Yeah, we,
Yeah.
like he was the first we killed.
It was like when he's getting catty when he was talking to Apophis that time.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, "I know where your mate Sharai is."
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, f off, mate."
Yeah.
But
have
and
your
then she just
son.
turns it around and she's like, "Well, you've killed all my adversaries. You've done me a great service. Thank you very much."
Yeah.
And it's like, suck on that, bitch.
Yeah.
Good. Good. I'm glad they're dead.
Yeah.
I wanted them.
I
I didn't
I
even
wanted
care
it
about
that
him
way.
anyway.
I wanted you to.
But something that Rhys brought up a few weeks ago, when I forget what episode it was, but you mentioned we were looking for something, and you were like, "Oh, wouldn't it be good if we had a Naquita detector, like
Yeah.
what's his
Flash
name
Gordon.
had, like Flash Gordon had?
Yeah.
Would have come in really
Aris
handy."
Bok.
Arisborg.
Well, now we have one.
Yeah.
We never see it again, but Daniel's got that little yellow. It's
never
actually
See it again.
It's actually like in real life, it was just a Garmin GPS, but he's like scanning all those devices looking for traces of Naquita.
Yeah.
So we have a Naquita detector.
Wish you would
Maybe
have put it
Yeah.
towards her face, and then he would have found some shit out.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, how was that moment actually when they got to the pyramid at the end and you got Stephen who's down unconscious, and then Carter just gets in and goes, "He's not good. I don't detect anything." Boom, just like drops a subtle Joelnar reference and leaves that shit alone.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank God. I just love it how at that point Daniel's trying to talk to Stephen, and Fraser's like, "He's got internal bleeding." He's like, "Just Janet, wait. He's about to tell me I'm right. Just let him get it out."
Standard Daniel. Oh, but I love how he literally had the most in-depth conversation as the only thing left out was, "What did you have for breakfast?" And he couldn't have said, "Sarah did this."
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got internal bleeding. He's not sure if he's going to die. He's like, "What happened?" "Oh, I'm so sorry. You were right all along.
Gum and
It's
Daddy
this
was
and that.
10,000 years."
And oh yeah, I stole your lunch the other day." And, literally told him every detail possible. Apart from, hey, he heard the Goa'uld glow thing, which he turned around. He's like, that big
Yeah.
little
And
gasp.
then,
Oh,
then
yeah.
he got
You
pulled
couldn't have
back.
just went, "It was Sarah. she's an alien or something like that. Okay, well, that's just saved us a bit of time.
She had a wardrobe change.
Because he knew, yeah.
And how did she get
She
here?
went to Cairo and got some linen.
Did she teleport here?
Yeah.
How did she get here?
How did she get
Great.
there?
Do you know Cyrus find Sarah's passport and just catch a domestic flight to Cairo?
I want to
what-
know, was she sitting in economy next to
Yeah.
a screaming baby? She's like, I'm a system lord, and I'm sitting next to this little shit of a
Holy
kid.
shit, I'm gonna murder your ass.
Futurama, what is it? Shut up! I'm a god. I will destroy you.
You're all my slaves, and I have to. Oh,
But then what-
Excuse me, can you just hold my baby for a sec? I'm not holding you, baby. Just hold my baby for a sec. Oh, god damn it!
I
I'm a
want
slave.
these peanuts open.
Okay, that'll be $5.95.
Oh,
I'm a
great.
god. I'm sure you are. That'll still be $5.95.
Oh, great. The in-flight entertainment's not working on this flight. Oh, fantastic. Great. Yeah, no, I've got headphones.
Netflix.
But nothing to watch.
The little
Fantastic.
shitty foam
Oh, you've got a
headphones.
newspaper. Oh, that's convenient. No, I didn't want to catch up on a movie. No, I'll read a newspaper. Oh, it's out of date. Fantastic.
Frozen for 5,000 frickin' years.
The flight attendant comes through. It's like, can I get you anything to drink? Yes, the blood of a newborn child. There's, we have tequila and Diet Coke.
Sorry, is that a Shiraz or a Merlot?
The rivers will run.
Right.
All that. Did she then, kill everyone in that flight and parachute out? Because,
There's no
quite clearly,
second car.
Stephen, he's driven across the desert. And then Daniel, and obviously he's driving. They're like, we're still ages away. And he's just like putting along. And I'm like, man, Vin Diesel the shit out of this. Like, you're driving across the desert. Put your fucking foot down.
It's like he's makes me think of that movie Paul. Like he doesn't want to like flog it in case it does something to the suspension. Saying, what about the Bond? F the Bond. Like, just keep going. Who gives a shit? That thing.
Stephen's got a Jeep there.
Hammond will pay for it.
Daniel and co rock up in their Jeep. Only they're the second set of tyre tracks.
That's it.
That's fine. She doesn't need to drive. Did she fucking fly there? Like there's
How
no
Mate,
footprints.
She hid in the back
there?
seat.
She went.
Where the f did she come from?
She went full Teal'c in Arc of Truth, and she just ran the whole way.
Reese doesn't know
I've
about
not,
that.
Yeah,
seen,
it's
I've
fine.
not seen that.
It's fine. He'll find out in about 5 years. and
It's
he'll
an
forget
epic
about
walk.
this.
It's one of the best riding.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a great
series.
scene.
Yeah,
it's
look,
the
it was
Cooper
a
one,
good. I was snuck up, great reveal, all that kind of stuff. Logistically, how did she get there? And if they said, "Oh, Stevens caught a plane to Cairo 4 hours ago,"
Yeah.
Sarah was with him.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
just
all
to
it
drop
needed.
something that I don't know. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Maybe she had a crystal skull.
Oh,
Maybe.
well,
See what happened there?
you never know.
Little plot hole.
I have I have 2 words here that I
It's
need.
Joe and Paul.
Still, he should have edited
Yeah,
that.
yeah, obviously.
I have 2 words I need to ask Rhys about.
Ooh,
Teal'c
anal.
shorts.
Tilk shorts.
Discuss.
Loved it. Shaved legs.
Shaved legs.
Just
mad-
those supple calf
Yeah.
Big
muscles.
calves going on.
Absolutely.
Was he wearing sandals as well? Were they like leather
You
sandals?
probably
probably seen him
would've
in Crocs.
Yeah.
Imagine
This
Teal'c.
episode was 10 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely would have been wearing.
Crocs.
And
on
do you reckon
socks.
he would have been like bright orange ones, or would he be?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Judge does that in real life. Like,
That's true.
man, some of the pants that guys wear, like, no one else on the planet can get away with
That's true.
No. Oh, yeah. And he almost can.
it. He barely can.
Yeah.
He can, but
He
he
can, but
barely
it's
can.
like, oh, you're lucky you Tilk. That's the only
Who
reason.
would run away from
If
him.
this was
I,
Daniel, that should get you
Yeah.
arrested.
I have a bit of trivia for the DC fanboys in the room.
Where are
After
they?
Batman vs Superman and Suicide Squad, there are none.
Where are they?
Yeah. Where
I wasn't referring to myself. I can tell you that.
Oh, mate, you love DC characters. You've said that. You're not a hater.
Batman's your fave.
Oh, it's
You watch DC TV?
As long as they're not live action, they're great.
Mate, you said DC. No one's. I mean, now you're putting us in
Live
the corner.
action
Mate, we're
post
just having
2000.
jokes. Relax.
Hey,
Just
come on,
having
mate.
some fun with Rhys over there. We're trying to.
Oh, right,
We're
right,
trying
right,
to
A
be
bit of
friends.
friendly banter.
We're trying to be friends again after he got up me earlier.
It's a bit of
last
banter.
week.
Wasn't the first time I got up you, mate.
Hey. Yeah, it was the first time I didn't enjoy it though. So the 4 new characters we meet in this, that are in this episode: Dr. Jordan, Dr. Rayner, Sheldon Stewart, and Sarah Gardner. Those last 4 names are the last names of all 4 Green Lanterns.
Indeed.
Oh.
Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, John Stewart, and Guy Gardner.
John Stewart.
So who?
Oh, why'd you have to single out the black one?
Absolutely.
And I know we've been heavy on the praise for the audio commentaries this season.
Mm.
The audio commentary for this episode is one of the most boring you will ever listen to in your entire life.
The episode didn't really do much either. So
Well, it's Andy Makita as the director. Good director, shithouse commentator.
You haven't got a clip of it, have you?
God, no.
Oh, thank you.
I'm looking forward to just a Robert C. Cooper only commentary.
Ooh.
It'd be amazing.
Are there any?
The inner thoughts.
If they
of-
are,
I'm
I've got-
hoping Arc of Truth, the full 2-hour version.
If there are some,
Extended edition, obviously.
if there are some, I've actually never listened to.
Yeah, me
so,
neither.
so no,
Obviously.
that's good.
For obvious reasons.
And the last thing I did want to bring up is this is a real like Shanksy heavy episode. Now I kind of feel I've got to be careful with my wording here, but real world. This is when Michael Shanks around at this time it starts kind of voicing his like he's over it, like he's kind of done with Stargate. He's a bit bored, like he's bored with Daniel Jackson because it's the same thing week in, week out, week in, week out.
Oh, you can tell.
So I can't.
Doesn't even want to carry a Zat.
And he does start playing. He does start playing around. Like he directs an episode later in this season, as I think as a way to kind of challenge himself.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering. This is like they literally, wrote Tilk and Jack out of this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, was this
Little bit
just
jealous.
to give? Was Shanksy like, oh, can I have an episode to like do stuff? Like, can I have some meat? So I'm wondering if this was maybe a way to kind of appease him a little bit and just give him something to do. Because he has been very one note the last, probably most of this season. I think there was some great stuff in the other side, but since that, it's kind of been a bit one note from him. He hasn't had a lot. I mean, Share's gone, and he's not banging bitches anymore. So, sorry, he's not banging random alien ladies on planets anymore.
Fucked a Neanderthal, for God's sake.
But
do you reckon they banged these two?
in the past,
Oh, yeah.
I got the vibe they even had a bit of a relationship. And I kind of got the vibe with Steven. I was like, are they in a relationship? And he's...
Stephen and Daniel.
He's in the friend zone big time.
Oh my god,
Oh, yeah.
so
That,
bad.
that's what I meant. Is Steven...
He had more of a chance with Dr. Jordan.
I'll see you down there later, Dr. Jordan.
I couldn't quite tell if
You know what I
Steven
mean?
was jealous of Daniel's intelligence,
Everything.
and the fact
Yeah.
that Sarah looked up to him so much, or was it
both.
he was with Sarah, but but Daniel came back as the ex-boyfriend, or did he want to be with Sarah and she was just like, I ain't giving
Probably a bit of
I ain't
everything,
giving you
but
the
more
time of
so he
day.
seemed a little bit more egotistical, so it was more about him. So
Yeah.
the Sarah thing was just more so, I think, from her admiration of him and the fact that he left, and yet she still would talk so highly of him, and also the fact that he left and the professor would always speak so highly of Daniel. Like,
Yeah.
everyone just loved Daniel, and this dude's like, I'm here, and they're like, oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming by.
always
For
in
me,
He
the
could just catalogue that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, the jealousy factor was to sell the point that he was the bad, that Steven was the bad
Yeah.
guy, and he was the one that blew
red
But
up
he just
herring.
seemed to be
Dr.
jealous
Jordan.
of everything. Like,
Yeah.
he was jealous of Daniel's entire life, even though Daniel's fallen off the map for the last 5 years.
It was a little
he still
overplayed.
seemed to be, yeah.
But even when he used Daniel's excuse as another attack, like when he was saying, "Oh, you left us," and Daniel's like, "I didn't just leave, leave the professor." He's like, "I tried to distance myself from him."
Yeah, to
and he's
protect
like,
him.
"Oh, you mean you left so he wouldn't be embarrassed by you?" And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's exactly
Yeah.
what he meant.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Exactly.
don't use his own logic
Well,
against him. Like,
yeah.
well
Yeah.
done, you dickhead. You understood what I was going for.
Yeah. I just wonder if maybe, they might have just been overcompensating with him to try and hide the reveal, really
Yeah.
push that
Yeah.
he was going to be
That's what I took.
the Goa'uld. And it's like, and I want to say, Sarah would never get with him anyway. But that's when I realized, I'm like, well, I've never actually met Sarah because I've only known her as Osiris.
Yeah.
So it's like she was Osiris putting on a facade that entire time. So it's like,
I mean, obviously taking
maybe-
attributes from the personality.
but,
Had
but
to have been good for Daniel not to recognise about.
yeah.
Well, after
and
5
that's-
years.
And that's the thing.
And-
Surely
He's had plenty of women since then.
Surely, if Osiris in Sarah's body wanted to get what she wanted, she could have uncorked the pheromones and kind of seduced Steven into, getting what she wanted.
Yeah.
But she didn't, because she was just like, this guy's a douche and he is no good to me.
What got me is Daniel Jackson's trying to be... Daniel was trying to be subtle about, look, I know everything, but I can't tell you. Yeah. He's guarding the world's most best-kept secret, and yet she's like, Now, if you didn't want her to know, you'd be like, no, he could have just been looking at that and going, no, I got no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I've seen this before, but I don't know where. I would love to reference some of this, but I really want to go reference some of this. And so he's like, yeah, and then so he's like, look, I can't tell you. I can't tell you this. And you're like,
I'm a mysterious guy.
Stop being so fucking coy and just go, I've got no idea, but I would love to take it to my colleagues. They might know. And just pretend, and then disappear again.
Meanwhile,
I can't tell you anything, but all I can tell you is that what you think you know barely scratches the surface.
Yes!
You know what? I can't tell you anything, but this whole 10,000-year-old thing doesn't surprise me at all.
Meanwhile, Osiris stuck in Sarah's head is going, if I was wearing my ribbon device right now, you would be mate.
So gone.
Daniel
would
Jackson
be-
obviously never did theatre sports in high school.
It sort of reminded me of this thing I read that the director of the latest Avengers movie said about Thor. Now, everyone's like, when Thanos says, you should have aimed for my head. Now, the director was asked, did Thor intentionally get that or did he miss? And the director said, no, good question. He intentionally went for the chest so that he could go to him and tell him, I told you I would kill you. For Thor, it was his way of going, I beat you. And it's because of that cost half the universe. It was Thor's pride. Now, the same thing is with Daniel. He's like, I could just as easily say, I got no idea. I've seen this before. I don't know where, but he's got this little pride thing that just goes.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to
I
tell
need
you.
my significance.
I'm just
like-
going to drop a few breadcrumbs so that you.
It's
Look,
like
so that
back
I
in
can walk
the-
away.
I thought it was
Back in the-
Star-Lord's fault, to be honest.
Well,
ease up on Star,
fucking
mate.
Star-Lord.
Everyone just needs to back off Star, alright?
No, look, great guy.
Yeah. Wait.
Has no control over his
Wait
emotions.
30 seconds to punch a bloke in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
face.
that's it. Literally,
Save
that's
the
it.
universe. Save the cheerleader.
Yeah. Tells everyone else. Tells Drax. Drax,
Yeah.
wait, it's bigger than this.
Yeah.
He killed Drax's wife and kid. But no, the mission's bigger than this. When it comes to him, you killed Gamora.
Yeah.
Whoa, mission. F the mission.
Yeah.
F you, Star Lord.
Glad you're dead.
Go and get an 8-track.
Also, a
that
point
out.
that I never made when we did our podcast, when they smashed Star-Lord's cassette player, Walkman, why didn't they just use the raccoon's bloody fixer-upper that he was using on the ship?
Yeah.
On the
in
cassette thing.
Volume 2.
Totally.
It's like,
Yeah, what was that
Didn't
thing?
they?
That was
awesome. Whatever that was
just a
awesome.
molecule dispenser.
It's a fifth
Just-
upper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like
Did they not? Because didn't he have it again?
Nah, he gave him one of those Microsoft iPods.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Whatever you call
That
it.
no one ever buys.
Soon.
That's the
It's
point.
like he got it free from
Yeah.
from some
From a
conference.
dying
In a-
and
company.
he's just like,
in an
have
Echo
this
show bag.
10,000 songs
it's
of
passed
Enya.
off in your hotel. It's in your hotel
I mean,
room
not
next
to
to the
knock Enya,
chocolate saying thanks for staying
you
with
know.
us.
Well, U2's automatically uploaded.
Can we talk?
That was better.
Can we talk about one of the best moments in this episode? Teal'c fishing.
Amazing.
Oh, classic.
Vanished to oblivion.
Right. Okay, thank you.
If you require assistance, I would be more than happy to return to the SGC.
No, thanks. I think I can take it from here.
Are you certain?
Give me that.
That was brilliant.
I could have honestly have sat by that jetty and listened to whatever the hell they were talking about, catching nothing, rather than watching Daniel and his stupid pride pretend he knows nothing, but pretending he knows everything. Shut up,
Think
Daniel.
think about what the set decoration said about the character, though. You had O'Neill out there on his chair. He had like an esky, he had his feet up. He had his rods there and shit. There was no second chair.
Yeah, I
So
know.
I think Teal'c from the outset knew,
Yeah.
I'm not going to enjoy this. I'll walk him out, but I'm not staying.
Will, I was
And
watching.
he walked him out there, and quite clearly he's like, oh, God, now I'm guilted into staying this
I
shit.
prefer to stand, O'Neill.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
watching that with my missus, and she goes, "It's making me really uncomfortable that he's standing up." And I said, "Yeah, I think it's supposed to."
Yeah, if they had a folded chair behind him or something,
Yeah, or
you'd
leaning
feel
up
better.
against the
Yeah.
SQ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something.
Sorry, I've only got one chair because I usually come up here alone.
Yeah.
So
I could sit on the esky, but I'm not
It's like-
gonna.
if Carter came with me, I wouldn't be using this chair at all.
It's
So
that sad bachelor pad. Like you go inside and in the kitchen there's just one plate, one
Yeah.
fork, one cup.
Standard.
Yeah.
a
One
milk
bottle
crate.
of scotch.
a milk crate in front of the TV.
Six
them.
empties.
Open. Yeah.
Yeah.
One full bottle of scotch, 6 empties. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that time of the week, if everyone's finished. So-
Oh, hey, it's time to find out if Rhys been paying attention. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row.
Told you, it's
Jeez.
back.
Oh,
By
it's
popular
back.
demand.
Back every week, is it?
Did you find a new tab on Stargate Command with more
Yeah,
questions?
well, obviously we
or-
haven't done some, so there's a lot of season 3 trivia I can bring in here. 5 questions. Yeah, 5 questions. 30 seconds on the clock. Short answer questions. Time starts at the end of the first question. Where did Seth run his religious cult?
Oh, where Fraser, yeah, pass.
What episode did we first see the replicators?
Nemesis.
Correct. Whose father played Ergo?
Deloise.
Correct. Complete this sentence. My name's Jack. It means...
Jack. Pass.
Which episode did Carter get promoted to Major? That's rough.
That's the Thor episode. That's Nemesis.
They were tough.
I didn't write it down. It was the...
Fair game.
Fair game. I
Yeah.
said that before.
Yeah.
I'll remember that.
Didn't.
I'm Jack.
Alright.
God, Jack.
Go on,
no,
you say it.
no, hell no.
I'm Jack.
Lincoln.
It means...
What's in
What's
the
in the
box?
box?
What's in the box?
I wouldn't have got that in the 30-second
Absolutely
time.
not.
Where did
No
Seth
way.
run
Seattle.
his religious cult? Seattle.
That's what it was.
What episode did we first... Yeah, you got Nemesis with the replicators. Who's Deloise was Ergo.
Mm-hmm.
What's in the box? Which episode did Carter get promoted as Major?
Fair game.
Fair game.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Rhys, your father made you wrong!
You stupid son of a bitch.
The sheer look of
every
utter
time.
defeat on Rhys's face right now. Love it.
I look. I can't get 5 every week, guys. It'll get a bit
No,
boring. So
Absolutely it would.
you know.
I don't think I'm emotionally prepared for you to get 5. I don't think I'd be able to celebrate to the level that it would need
No,
to be.
because he hates you.
So,
Not as much as I hate me, mate.
All right, that's episode 79 of Get Into Gates. We'll be back. Another big milestone for the show. Who would have thought we'd get this far? Episode 80 next week with The Serpent's Venom. That's next week
That ought to
on
be fun.
SG1.
On the next Stargate SG-1, the mission to destroy an enemy alliance
Sounds very risky. Insane might be another word.
by sabotaging a minefield.
The last time a Toku was sent to attempt this, they were never heard from again.
One false move,
I have a problem here.
and everything could blow up in their face.
I think it's gonna explode.
But the real crisis? One of their own waits to be sacrificed.
What's he on?
Tilk.
Now, will this turn into a suicide mission for them all?
We gotta go back for Teal'c.
It's too late.
Richard Dean Anderson stars on the next Stargate SG-1.
We'll be back then
Oh, you
to
give it to
talk about that. In the meantime, you can actually go, while we're talking about over the next week, on our sister podcast, Get Into Geek. Another big movie coming out this week, Ant-Man and the Wasp, for us Marvel MCU fans. So it just keeps on happening from Marvel this year. It's their
cop
third
that,
film.
DC.
So he wasn't affected by the Infinity Stones.
Well, I guess we'll have to
Or
find
were
out and
they?
see.
Or were they?
We'll
Or does
see.
it take place before it?
Oh, indeed.
Prequel.
Ruined it.
You can check that out on Get Into Geek podcasting, wherever you might find your podcasts. Otherwise, you can check out all of our old Get Into Gate podcasts on our podcasting channels, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you find your podcast. Follow us on the socials, like, subscribe, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or drop us a line, getintogate@gmail.com. Myself, Mitch_Lewis on Twitter and Instagram. Matty,
At High Pitch Maddie on the things.
Brendan,
At the Brendan Gibson on Twitter and Instagram.
Rhys,
I'm at the Flying Gibson on all the things.
and Lincoln.
At Link_Lewis.
And for all those who have done it already, thank you. For everyone else, patreon.com/getintogate. Get on board. Support the show, join the show, become part of the show.
If you don't want to be part of the curse, then you should just jump on board patreon.com/getintogate.
Until then, we'll see you next week for episode 80 of Get Into Gate, The Serpent's Venom. Catch you then.
GetIntoGeek.com.